Now the other thing I did today was I redid the carb sync, and I did it using this gadget here, which I purchased some time ago, and I wanted to do a video on it. I actually want to do a video showing all methods of syncing the carbs that I know, but this one works really well. Well, let's get the box, show what it is. Now, they haven't sponsored this, obviously, if I put this on YouTube. That's what it is. I got it off eBay. I saw it somewhere online. There isn't much about this. They're for cars. They're pretty common. Oh, for aircraft. That's right, aircraft engines. Very important, of course. And so, I hadn't seen it mentioned anywhere regarding Ducatis or anything, but I did see it somewhere in regards to some bike. Someone using one. And so I looked it up, and here, see, is a Rotax kit. That's the Rotax aircraft engines, that sort of thing. Pretty cheap, you know, $100 and something or something like that. Can't remember. It wasn't much. And the base model is made for 2 cylinders, so perfect for us Ducati owners. And if I've added this to the video, then you will have seen the video just then of how I set it up. Just to recap that, with it measures the vacuum in the inlet manifold, so you can use it to synchronize the carbs. And what you do need to do beforehand, though, is set your mixture. And so what I did on the bike, to clarify again, is I went to 1 carb, I wound up the idle so it was quite a bit higher, and that lets me pull off the spark plug on the other side. And so this is a method I use, because for the mixture, you don't really want it at idle, you want it at above idle. That's that very first phase where where the fuel doesn't just come up through the idle jet, but there is what's called the idle jet, but it's for that phase where the engine is just above idle, and where the throttle is just opening a little bit, the slide, but it's still getting a good amount, or half or more of its mixture, through the idle jet. And that's where you want it to be running well. Idle itself can easily be set, even if the engine is running terribly otherwise. You can always set your idle with the idle screw. You know, you wind it in, and at some point it's going to be where you want. But that doesn't mean it's running well at that. It's just running. And so what you really want is your mixture to be set above idle. And the easy way to do that is go up a full turn, at least, maybe 1.5, but go up a full turn, and then sit there with the other plug off and listen to your engine. You know, wind it all the way in. You probably have to keep it going on the throttle, because it'll go off. You just go all the way in very, very quickly, out 1.5 turns. So in, all the way till it hits, and then immediately back a half, so 1.5 turns out. At that point it should settle, and then as it settles, you know, give it a blip, and then just let it settle. And then just go quarter of a turn, you know, out. And see if it starts to drop, then come back again. If it rises, go past the rise and go another quarter turn until it drops again, and then come back the other way until it drops. And you just want to find that point where it runs best, where it's sort of got the highest idle, that peak point, the midpoint. And just do things in quarter turns, and that gives you a sort of a nice way to go up and down. And it should be somewhere around 1.5 to 2 turns from the bottom. If it isn't, then you've got something else messed up. Your jetting is probably stuffed up. And then put the plug back on the other side, drop this back down a turn or a turn and a half, whatever you did. You know, just visually just get it back to where it was. And then do the same on the other side, and then drop it down. And so when you then drop it down, got them both plugs back on, idle back roughly where it was. At that point, the mixture should be roughly right, and you want to adjust the sync at 2 points, once on the idle screws and once on the throttle. So the one on the idle screws you can just set. You can just put that device in, and the way it works, very cool. Again, I showed it in the video, but I'll just go over it here. You have to install these little gadgets here on your carbs. They have a little rubber nipple thing to cover the hole. Buy more of these because you don't want to be stuck with one of these breaking as you pulled it off. I of course put some silicone on these to keep them nice and smooth, get them on and off easy, but if you don't, you'll find you pull one off and it'll just break in half or something. But if you lose one, you want to have another one with you. If you leave those nipples on, you could of course just take them off when you're finished. If you're confident, it's always good. So first thing you do is for this thing is you wire it up to the battery. It's got some cables with it. And then with the knobs all down on the nothing, turn it on, and then as you turn this up, just slowly, at a certain point, the lights will come along and that green light will come on. You stop just when the green light comes on. You don't find a midpoint, you just stop at the point where the middle comes on. Stop right there where it comes on, okay? Then you put these hoses on, and you can leave the bike running throughout all of this, as I did in my video. Just be aware that when you pull the little thing off there, the bike will stumble and might go off, but get the hose back on quickly and it won't. So get both your hoses on, and then you can set your, these lights will be one side or the other, or they might be in the middle, who knows. But if it's one side, try and figure out which one of the carbs is the one you think is running at the right speed. If your idle is too high, just get them both down by hand a little bit. Take them both down a little until you're roughly in the right place, because you're going to be matching one carb to the other. So obviously the other one has to be at the right speed. It won't be at the right speed all the time because, you know, as one goes up, the other comes up with it or goes down with it. And so what you do need to zero in on what your idle is going to be, 1,000 or whatever. But you can do that. You know, you just go in and you know, if say the other one, my left one is fine, my rear one is fine, and this one I'm just syncing to that, I just go out, this thing drops for a moment, slowly go in and it comes back up, hits the green, give it a blip or two, watch it settle, redo it maybe. And then this thing here lets you make the 0 point smaller and smaller and smaller. So as you go up like this, the sensitivity just becomes quite small. So you can get really accurate. I've found that once I'm there or there, there's very little further gain because it's not that accurate. You know, once I've set it accurate there, it seldom moves. Or maybe I'm just getting it really accurate anyway at this level. Once you've got your idle screws set and synced, then move on to the throttle itself. And what you do here is you just take up your slack, and obviously you should have slack on both of your slides a little bit. Undo your lock nut. Undo the lock nut there, pull that up, undo the lock nut, and move it up a couple of turns. And you're just going to use your fingers to spin the that bit there. And so I would sit there and I just pull this up a little bit, just bring it on a little bit to where both slides are being pulled up, so the cables are tensing and being pulled. So you just bring it up, so they're just coming above idle, or as Brooke would say, just crack it on a little bit. And at that point, watch the lights, and if you had them right at idle, they're probably not going to be right when you bring it up. And so it'll go one way or the other. And if it goes that way, typically I believe you turn it in, you bring the screw down a little bit. If you go the other way, bring it out a little bit. And then do it again. Just bring it up, watch it. It's very sensitive. It's surprisingly good, this. It's better than what I was able to do by ear. I spent hours doing this by ear, just by feel and by ear. Many different methods of getting these synced by ear as well. This is way more sensitive and easy as well. So really quite happy with this. Just makes it quick and easy. And then pull your leads off and tighten your nut up, pull the leads off, put the plonks back on, and you're done.
Okay. That idle's bloody low. Let me turn the light off and the signal off. Get it up on the center stand, which is now nice and easy since I modified the stand. So I'll do this with my helmet on so I can keep the camera going. So what I got to do here is pop off the side covers. I'm not ruining anyone's nap. Put that there. And the next trick is this gadget here, which I found very useful. And so this is not for doing the mixture, this is doing the sync of the carbs. Just the synchronization. Now I could have a go at the mixture again now. And so to do the mixture, my preferred method is to take this in, and I sort of remember vaguely what I was at. So that's vertical there, and I'm going to go in because I'm going to do this one first. So I'm going to raise the idle on this one by quite a bit. 1, 2 halves. I count halves. 3 halves. So that's 3 halves. That's 4 halves. So 2 full turns. Then I'm going to pull off this one. Alright, so we're just running on the rear here. I'll get up to the throttle. So stop it from going off. And then the mixture screw here. Out is richer, in is leaner. So the in, 1.5. So I go all the way in, and then 1.5 turns out. I'm just keeping it alive just then with the throttle, because when you go all the way in, it'll choke and go off. So I'm 1.5 turns out. So now we come to this gadget. And what we do here is two things. We let it sort of adjust itself in the air. Just there and there. So with nothing attached to the hoses. Before connecting hoses to engine, adjust 0 until the center LED is on. And what I've found is that you actually, with that all the way down, this is the accuracy of it. That's low accuracy, that's high accuracy. So with that on the lowest, we move this up until that hits the green. But don't try and center it because it doesn't go past. See, if I go all the way, it just stops there. Basically like that. Down, comes on. So it comes on. That's fine. And then we're going to put these on each side here. I've got to do this quickly so it doesn't go off. A bit of a fiddle. Alright, there we go. One on. You mount these little nipples on your carbs. Keep some of these with you in case someone pulls one off or you lose it, because you don't want to lose it. So that's one on, and the other one we do the same right here. Again, I'm going to pull it off, then try and get the damn thing on. Okay, off and on. I just threw that away so I could use my hands. There we go. Now what we're doing here, this is now measuring the vacuum. So same as what people do either by ear or by listening to the floats or by using all that, the alcohol in the glasses type of arrangement. This I've found very nice. There we go. It's almost spot on. We're just over 1,000, which is where I like it. I can go down to this carb and adjust the idle screw, and we'll see what happens here. It's solidified actually just then. And if I go a bit more, see how it goes to that side? If I go heaps, go even further, see it goes up. So I'm going to take it back. It's solid there. But because I like to come up to an adjustment from out, so I'm screwing in, I'm going to take it out a bit. And it'll go below, right? And now I'll bring it up. There. It's nice and solid. That's great. I mean, that's how I want it to run. I don't need to set the front one because those are in sync at idle. Now this here makes this point much more accurate, but I find that, you see, it's giving me a slight little flicker, so let's just get that out, but it's nothing. I find that this method, whether or not the values are correct, the adjustment is much finer than I can do by ear. It's so slight. It's quite impressive. And there it's solid. About there, okay. I'm just going, sort of going one side, other, and then zeroing in on it. And then you sort of got to play with it a bit. Okay. So that's your idle, right? But the next bit, and this is the important bit, you've got to take your little spanner, and we're going to go in here. I don't know if this is visible. I'm undoing the throttle cable adjuster up here. 8mm nut. Just undo it, take the nut well out of the way, and I only have to do it on one. The other one's fine. And what I'm going to do here is go, okay, well, check that. Yep, that still settles about right. But now I'm going to take the throttle on. Make sure you have slack in your cables like that. Bring it on just a tiny bit, like that, tiny bit. See what happens? That goes out. That means they're not in sync when the cables are slightly lifted, when the slides are slightly lifted. If I drop back to the throttle stops, which is the idle adjuster screws, it's in sync again. But what matters is it in sync when we're just on the throttle like that, and it's not. So what I'm going to do here is put that where I can see it. I'm going to hold the adjuster. I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to rev it a bit and sort of just play around. So that's cracked on a little bit. It's obviously off. So let's see. If I go in, I'm letting off the slack. I can get it to there. And back to idle. Again, that's the idle screws. So that should not change because it's resting on the screws, not the cables. If you had no slack in your throttle, you'd have trouble with that. It'd be resting on the cable, idling on the cables. So let me give it a bit of gas, crack it open. Well, that's nice. So I'm just winding up the nut now. Okay. There we go. And I'm making tiny adjustments. Letting go. Bring it on. Yep, very good. So whilst I was doing that, I used my finger to bring the nut, the lock nut, down into position, just to hold it with my finger, because that might also create a little bit of a change as that tightens. And back into the middle. See how it changed, but then it settled? Yeah, I'm not worried if it changes as it's getting somewhere, but once you're there, it's stable. That's important. Right. Excellent. So very happy with that. Now I could go and do the idle again if I wanted, but I'm happy with that. I'm basically just on 1,000. I like it to be a tick above 1,000. There we go. How great is that? Again, you can see that doing its stuff. Take that down, that off, pull that off, and now get my little nipple thingies. There we go. Make sure you get those siliconed and the nipples siliconed as well, just to smear. So if it gets stuck on, these things are not very strong, they can break, and you really don't want to be stuck up out somewhere without one of these. It makes them slide on and off better anyway, make them last longer. Okay. Couldn't be better than that, could it? Now again, let me just make clear. This is a technical measure. Just because you get them technically synced like this doesn't necessarily mean that on your engine that's the best sync. I found that when I do it by ear and when I do it like this, I can get a different result. And who knows? It's how your bike rides that matters. Because who knows what's wrong with your bike, what else is out of adjustment, you know, valves, the slides, all kinds of crap can be worn out and stuff, but this bike is basically perfect. Everything's in flawless condition, everything's new. So I can tend to rely on that when I make adjustments, and it's very good. Okay, there we go. There's that. Close that. Put the covers back up. Oops, back on. Oops. Oh dear, lost that screw. I use a little rubber washer on the other side to keep the screws there. It still fell off just then. Doesn't matter. I've got a few spares. Even getting those is hard. Getting matched sets of these of the right style. But I got them. They all look good. Okay, so that was just a demonstration of whatever that gadget is, Moto something. I've forgotten what it is. I'm not endorsing that product, but I bet if I put this video out, people will go and buy it. Tell them you saw it on my channel, maybe. If they ever do an upgrade, they can send me one. It's made for things like aero engines. It has an adapter kit, so it can be used with a multi-cylinder or 4-cylinder. But for us with these bevels, of course, it's perfect as it is. That's all you need. All right. Bike is adjusted and ready to go. But I'll have to take it back home because it's not registered. So I shouldn't be driving around. Get out of there. Get out of there. Right, so one of the other big changes I did this year were the stand. Cut it, re-welded it, made it so it's easier to get on and off. And I remember being in this spot, I've been here several times doing this work, and it was always hard to get it off the stand with this gravel and so on. So let's see how that is now. Oh, much easier. Much easier. Everything done. Everything back on. Lights. Feels good already. I always check my side stand every time I take off, even when I haven't used it.